Welcome into this week's F1 starting grid. It's next week. I just cannot wait for that. This is so exciting. Next week is going to be Bahrain, the start of the season. Hey, I'm Brock Young. Chaz Day is right there. Mike Allen, unfortunately, won't be with us this week, but we'll see him next week. It's exciting. It's so exciting. I just can't wait for this. But first, I want to address the elephant in the room. So, Chaz, I was trying to make, like you have different backgrounds every week. I was trying to do the same thing because someone told me, like, when I had my camera turned, it's like, your background sucks. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate you being a sure. So I was trying for something different. So I have this nice little poster behind me. So I hope that makes it up. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, maybe don't try for different. Maybe try for better. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I like that. That is actually the slogan of Mercedes, I guess. Or at least that's what's supposed to be going into the season right now. That's what stood out for me for this testing, man. Everyone is talking is like, yes, Mercedes will come around, will make a difference, will change what they need to change. But man, dude, they didn't look good. In fact, I heard one couple F1 commentators said this is the worst they looked since 2004. I'm sorry, 2014 when they introduced the hybrid era.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw something different or you saw something, at least a silver lining in this cloud of mystery they have right now, or
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things for me. I think the first thing is it's Mercedes. I mean, they'll figure it out. Their engineers are phenomenal. I'll also say if you look at last year, which is just kind of an interesting reference point, I guess. If you look at last year, Stroll, Fiat, and Giovinazzi they finished 4th, 5th, and 6th. So yeah, I don't really know that testing is a super big indicator of where people are going to land.
well, that's a good point because I was going to say this as a caveat or disclaimer. It's testing. It's not the season. It's going to change.
Right.
Um,
Right.
in the last, I think, 10, 15 years, um, I think there was only twice that the team that won testing won the championship, and one of them was last year with Mercedes winning the testing last season. But between 2015 and 2019, the winners were Ferrari.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it should be understated at all. I think Red Bull definitely made a statement. They came in and were pretty dominant. When you look at them compared to their real rival, they were almost a 1 second, so a little bit more than 1 second ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So I mean, it's not nothing, right? It's not something worth ignoring. So I don't think we can just kind of throw it out completely. They still have to figure out how to make up a second. Obviously, Red Bull's still going to be getting better during that time period. So again, it's not worth discounting, but I do think that it's not a full indication of where people are going to land if we just look historically at how testing has played out throughout the season.
this is true, but one thing that stood out for me, but first, I'm going to go by the laps per team. Alfa Romeo had the most, as well as Alfa Tauri, 422. Ferrari
Yeah.
had 104. Alpine had 396. Two behind that was Haas. Williams had 373. Red Bull had 369 at number 7. McLaren at 327. Aston Martin at 314. And Mercedes was last at 304. Now, if you break it down per team, the fastest, of course, as you said, was Red Bull. But I want to see this. Not even half a second behind him was Yuki Tsunoda and AlphaTauri. That, I think, I mean, once again, testing. But this blew my mind. And we were going to do constructors later on, and we had this discussion yesterday as far as who we're going to put in the constructor standings. And I had to make a swap for my standings because of what Yuki did. This is unbelievable. This is what stood out for me, not necessarily Mercedes, but what Yuki did. And granted, the first two days it wasn't all too well, but I think that's a silver lining right there for AlphaTauri.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, we're talking offline about just like what he's been able to do, or what he's meant to the sport even already. It's been really fun to see him come in and bring a fresh energy. I think that'll probably be the biggest thing that he does this season. AlphaTauri, in my predictions, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. I know, but in my prediction, they'll end up somewhere in the middle. But yeah, this is definitely fun. I mean, it's super exciting to see something like that play out in testing, especially from one of the newest drivers.
Well, absolutely. You know, I was going to break down per team, but first off, now Gasly didn't do bad. He actually helped out the team, but I mean, what AlphaTauri gave Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, I don't know. I was just blown away, and I'm becoming a fan of his right now because he's so humble. So I mean, he can make fun of himself all the time. We talked about this earlier, what he said on Twitter and stuff like that, and we'll go into it. But I don't know. I just have, and once again, I said this a couple of weeks ago. The mid tier for me, it could go any way. Any team in the mid tier could go anyway for the season for me. So that was hard for me. The hardest part was the mid tier, trying to pick who was going to be what. But I just see something special from Yuki and AlphaTauri. I know he probably wants to move up into the Red Bull team, but I think he could really help AlphaTauri, at least for this season and next season.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think this says about Gasly?
Well, that's a good
question. Because you said he didn't finish bad, but I mean, he finished in 12th, which is also not good.
Not great, but that's a good question. I'm going to defer to someone else. No, I'm picking. No, it's yeah, but that shows that Gasly, and we talked about this last week too with Gasly and mid tier, how he won last season, be on the podium and stuff like that, is because of what other happened to the other teams. The other teams got crash penalties and stuff like that. That's how he moved up. Gasly is a good mid-tier driver. A good mid-tier driver. When we go down in history, I don't think he'll be remembered as one of the best in Formula One, but I think he will be remembered as something that it's just a good driver. I mean,
it almost makes you wonder, like how long his career will be. I mean, because he is one of those that he could have he could have just a long career in one of the lower tier teams, right? Like one of the third tier teams,
right?
And just be kind of a at worst a reserve driver, at best number two. I mean, he's proven he can't be a number two, at least right now, on a first tier team because he had that seat. But yeah, I mean, maybe he could be a number two for a number of years. Maybe like a Grosjean. I mean, Grosjean's. I don't know that he's had a good season in 10 years. Before he left.
I think his highlights were back when Vettel was champion. He was able to get in the podium more with Lotus, Grosjean. But yeah, to your point, it's just, and I got a feeling if Gasly can't make it too well in Formula One, he might do what Grosjean did and just go to IndyCar. That's what some.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it might be that, or if he stays in F1. I mean, with Grosjean, I mean, we're talking about like it's been a proper 8 to 10 years of no wins, right? Like 0 wins. So it is possible to be, not a first-rate driver. I mean, first-rate in the world for sure, but to still stay in Formula One for a long time. I think a lot of it nowadays is going to depend more on sponsorships. So I don't know what his support structure looks like, but if he's got a lot of support by way of sponsorships, then maybe he can sneak in there for quite a while. He could have a long career. Otherwise, I think he'll just kind of be, a driver that's around for a couple seasons. Maybe like, I mean, he's still young too, which is hard, but I mean, we've had a lot of drivers that were like that. Maybe like an Ericsson who was there for, 3 years or so, and then just kind of went to Indy.
Let's move on to Ferrari. Now, they had 404 laps, which is dominated by Carlos. Now, understandably, Carlos will have more laps because Charles is already there. He knows Ferrari. I mean, granted, it's a new power unit for them in a way, but Carlos was able to get Ferrari into the 3rd position for testing. Do you see a silver lining for Ferrari this season because of this, or it's just going to be the same old, same old?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a pretty clear picture of where they'll end up based on where they started out, as far as how they started talking about the season. I think that obviously in testing, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't as bad as maybe we were expecting. A number 3 slot is super legit, but I think ultimately they'll wind up, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think ultimately they'll wind up maybe, again, somewhere in the middle, but not at the top of the pack.
I do agree. I think, this helps Ferrari, honestly, having Carlos there. And I pointed out a couple weeks ago that those two, Charles and Carlos, will help each other. They're probably one of the best driver pairings. Also looking at it now, Carlos in the past hasn't run too well with his other driver pairing, but however, this helps push Charles to become a better driver, better than he already is. Now you could say the same that he did that, or Vettel did that for him, but I think there's more of a relationship there with Carlos that Charles has than he had with Vettel. And so
I think part of that's probably just an age thing, right? Like they're part of the same generation. Vettel, I think he was in a place where he was just doing his own thing. I mean, he's won 4 world championships. He's I think he's just in a different place. I don't think the relationship was the same. To your point, I don't think it was the same.
I think it was, and to your point too, I think Ferrari move up in the state. I mean, last year was horrible for them. I mean, there's other teams that finished below them, but honestly, for Ferrari, this is probably going to be their worst season they will have in a while, in my opinion. So this will probably wake them up, and try to push it, because I know Charles was better last season, and it hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead.
It hurt him that that Ferrari finished where he finished. So he's hungry. Carlos is hungry. I think this really helps promote Ferrari into that upper mid-tier, lower upper tier bracket again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of the tale of 2 seasons, because while Ferrari had an awful season from a performance metric standpoint, I mean, they also made money, right? And they were one of the biggest money makers, right behind Mercedes for last season. So, it's kind of the tale of 2 seasons. Was it a poor season from a performance standpoint? I don't think that's really debatable. But was the season not worth it, or like a complete wash when you think about what the entire function of this whole thing is? It is an entertainment thing that is vehicle to make money, right? So
Right.
it was profitable. It made money. So I wouldn't say that it was a completely terrible season, but I mean, from a fan standpoint, it wasn't great. If if you're a fan of Ferrari,
Um, yeah, it reminds me. I've been a Saints fan, a New Orleans Saints fan for American football here for many, many, many years. And I remember growing up, it's like even before the season started, well, there's always next season. There's always next year. So I think I was hoping for Ferrari for, well, there's always next season. There's always next year. We'll see about that.
yeah,
Um, Move on to Alfa Romeo, who came in actually second, but they had the most laps. Actually, Kimi was the one that helped them out there with uh, put in a time of 129.766. That is not too bad, but once again, it's Alfa Romeo. And you pointed out last week that Alfa Romeo, uh, Giovanni isn't that great. Kimmy, this might be his last season, so he's probably just there for the paycheck. Um, and for me, and once again, we're going to get the constructors later on. I mean, this might be the silver lining to the season they're going to have finishing.
you're saying where Kimmy finished,
Yeah, they finished in fourth.
right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they probably feel pretty good right now.
Right now.
But right, but I don't know that they'll feel as good after the first race. I think things will.
I'm a little surprised how Williams finished up, and once again, caveat is it's testing, but they finished sixth with George Russell finishing a 130.177, um, which is a full second off of Max's time. Um, Not bad, but once again, not great. But if I see a silver lining out of them, they were in the middle of the pack, not with just the fastest lap, but also with laps competed by team with a 373, and they really try to push that car as much as possible during testing. So I see something better out of them over the next weeks coming ahead, especially with George Russell. Um, and they may actually finish where they finished in testing over the season at number six. I'm not going to say that, but they may. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough because they finished ahead of Ricardo,
mhm.
um, Lando, and Leclerc. I mean, those are kind of like the big ones. I mean, Alonso maybe, but I would say finishing again ahead of Leclerc, ahead of Ricardo, and ahead of Norris just kind of shows you, and ahead of Bottas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it just kind of shows you how skewed the data is.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
the first 2 days, McLaren came out strong, but they finished in seventh position in testing. Um, Now that's not going to say how they're going to finish the season, but that right there also doesn't look too great on McLaren finishing at seventh. But from what I'm understanding in the garages right now, they're making tweaks to that engine, so hopefully they'll have it by next week in Bahrain.
You want to get into how we see the season shaking out?
If you want to go that
Seems
way.
like a good. Well, seems like a good transition, just because we're talking about where they are right now, and I'm super curious to see where you landed for where everyone's going to land.
Before we do that, I just want to go back to Mercedes just for a second, and we talked about this offline as well. It's what Toto Wolff said, and in a quote, found a hair in the soup during testing. So they found the problem,
Mm-hmm.
they need to fix. Um, Now, Hamilton also said we're just not that quick enough, and there's a lot of work to do before the first race. And what Mike pointed out was like last week or the week before, Tom Brady. I remember when Tom Brady used to go on these press conferences, just like last season. He said, Drew Brees and the Saints are fantastic. They're a great team. We got to really do our work. He said that almost about every single team going to a press conference. And when we made those press conferences, I'm like, oh God, he's going to win. He just has that boldness, confidence right there. It come off as humble and stuff like that. I don't know if you see the same thing from Hamilton. He says, we're not that quick enough. We got so much more work to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in previous episodes too, because it's such a hallmark of what that team is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Toto has said up until just before the last race, when they were both winning the drivers and constructors, that look, it's not over yet. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot ahead of us. The other teams are competitive. I mean, it doesn't feel super real. It kind of feels like what like the major tech companies do when they're trying to avoid antitrust. They go, oh, like, yeah, we got a lot of No, we got a lot of competition. There's competition everywhere, right? And really, all they've done is just like, segment their business, and maybe they have competition in the smartphone market, but in their core business, they don't have real competition. And so, yeah, maybe they'll lose some points to Red Bull, but when it comes to the constructors, I think it's a monopoly. I don't. I think the season will shake out and show that.
Well, before we move on, I want you to get what stood out for you, good or bad? What stood out for you the most this past weekend?
Mm, I'll be honest. I don't put a ton of weight in testing. I think that it is exactly what it's meant to be, which is just teams get a chance to get out on the track and see what they can do. Weigh themselves up against other teams. But I mean, even if we look directly at last season, and where teams and individual drivers finished at the end of at the end of testing, it's just not a fair indication of how the season will ultimately, come to pass. So I don't put a ton of weight in it. I think that it was the most fun part of it was probably just seeing Yuki do so well. Verstappen is that's a predictable outcome. I also think that it was fun seeing Kimi do well, right? It's always fun to see a former world champion get out there and put up some quick times in a car that you wouldn't necessarily think could do something like that. So that was pretty fun too. But I would say the biggest story for me and the most fun one, and I think most people agreed, everybody else was on the same boat, I think, with just like being excited about Yuki and talking about it.
Well, in short, basically, you're thinking this is preseason.
Yeah, it's the preseason. It doesn't count.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Yeah, it's just an indicator of what is coming up and stuff like that. And once again, they'll fix it. And there's like rumors that Mercedes was sandbagging during the weekend. I mean, granted, if all seasons to do it, but I don't
I
know.
mean those rumors are going to happen when you're Mercedes, right? Like if you're anyone else, you're just terrible. You just didn't do well. If you're Mercedes, it's there's a reason. They're intentionally not doing well, right? Like that's the difference in performance. So yeah, we talked about it before. They found the proverbial hair in the soup, and they'll figure it out. It seems they already have.
All right, let's move on to the fun stuff, and that's our predictions for constructors over the year. Now, before you give your picks, Chaz, I'm going to give Mike's out. At number one, he has Mercedes. followed by Red Bull, then Ferrari. At number 4, he has AlphaTauri, and as a Williams guy, he has Williams at number 5. Number 6, he has McLaren
Embarrassing.
at number 6 at McLaren. Aston Martin at number 7, Alfa Romeo number 8, number 9 Alpine, and number 10 is Haas.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
um, so, Chaz, what do you have?
You said he has Williams at 5.
Williams at 5 and a McLaren at 6, which is honestly.
Oh man, he's all sorts of delusional. Okay, well, I mean, huh?
You say that way he's not here, but
yeah, no, I mean, I would say it if he was here. I mean, it would be less true. I mean, I get it. I understand, belief, but I don't know. The belief is blind, so I don't know what to say about that. But anyways, all right. Here's let me kind of give you my breakdown. I got Mercedes 1, Red Bull coming in after them. They'll probably be a fair bit off the pace. It won't actually be too far from what last season looked like. I think Red Bull and McLaren will probably be closer. They'll come in after Red Bull. McLaren will. Ferrari will come in next. Alpine, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, then Williams, then Haas. So my big change, if you will, is I think Haas will drop behind Williams, and I think Alpine will take a step forward.
and you have Ferrari coming in all the way up to 6. I'm sorry, 4.
I do. Yeah, I have. Yeah. They are also coming up. I have them doing better than Alpine and AlphaTauri.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a good driver lineup.
They do. They have a great driver lineup. And I want to get your take on this, Chaz, because we have a friend that follows us on Twitter, and you can follow him too, is at F1Fan2. And his predictions are, and this is, wow. In fact, he still had Force India and Toro Rosso on his pick, so I had to change it up a little bit for him. But his number 1 is actually Red Bull, followed by Mercedes, then McLaren. At number 4, Ferrari. Number 5, Aston Martin. Number 6, Alpine. Number 7, AlphaTauri. Alfa Romeo at number 8, Williams at number 9, and Haas at number 10.
Okay. So I mean, I think his biggest shakeup is at the top.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's reasonable. I see how you would arrive there. I mean, I think it's wrong, mostly because we're talking about constructors too. That's another kind of fundamental reason why it's not a great prediction. I mean, if we were talking about, they're far more likely to win a drivers' championship than a constructors. If because we're talking about both cars, right?
Right.
So they're far more likely to win a drivers than a constructors, in my opinion. And I don't think that they have a shot in hell to win a drivers. So I don't see it, but I definitely get. I mean, they're the closest team by far. Red Bull's the only team that can properly give them competition, as we even saw this weekend, right? They have the capacity, and Hamilton was super gracious. I mean, he was even saying, and not to crap on other teams and say, he was placating them. I think that he was being generous, but he called the Red Bull another kind of beast this season. So I think he's been very complimentary.
Yeah.
So I think that the car is going to be fast. It's definitely going to be fast. They haven't had a bad season in a very long time. So we know it's going to be fast. It's just, is it going to be faster than Mercedes? And I think we can probably use the last 8 years as a pretty decent indicator.
Well, the last time the drivers and the constructors split, was over 10 years ago. I think it was either 2009 or 2010. So now, I think it's going to be closer than what most people think. So our friend on Twitter there might not be too far off. Now I have still though Mercedes at number one, Red Bull at number two, Ferrari actually moving up to number three. So I'm probably the most bullish on Ferrari. I like all you guys. Then McLaren at number four, AlphaTauri at number five, number six, Aston Martin, Williams moving up to number seven, Alpine at eight, Alfa Romeo at nine, and Haas at 10. Now, where I'm going wrong with that, Chaz?
No, I see that. I think I think Ferrari is a train wreck. So I I think one of both of our really good friends is a Ferrari fan.
Yeah.
So as much as I hate to say it, I do think that they're an utter train wreck. But yeah, I would say other than that, the rest of the field is pretty. I think we'll get the biggest shakeup next season, right? And if I wouldn't be surprised if I was in the norm here as one of those people that's kind of excited to see what happens with that. This season feels a little bit, I mean, even going into it, I feel kind of like meh, right? And maybe that's just a product of these last few seasons that we've had. I mean, we've had some good races, we've had some really good races, but as far as like the overall season, it's lacked a lot of drama.
It did, honestly, but give credit to Formula One, what they had to work with in that situation. I mean, we got to see new tracks too, like in Portugal and Turkey, that we haven't seen in a long time. Um, but also, to your point earlier, I feel that and it's just me, maybe Red Bull and Mercedes will battle out closer than years past. It may come down to the wire. I said this before. It may come down to the wire. It may come down to the last race. Who knows? Um, but for me, it's going to be an exciting season. I mean, you just pointed out, it's like, yeah, but for me, it's exciting. Every race is exciting for me, but
no, and to clarify, I love it. Okay. I've loved these last seasons. I watch every single race. I watch post race. I watch pre-race. I'm excited, but I'm not excited. I'm excited about the race, not the results.
Fair enough. Which actually leads us to a good follow-up question here. We had a couple weeks ago, we had a choice between Max and Daniel Ricciardo as far as who will win the championship first. Now, we had that Twitter poll online, and it kind of shocked me a little bit. We had it between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, who will win the championship first. 56% said Charles will win it first. Now, for me, I thought Max, with that Red Bull power he has on it, if not this season, next will be his first championship. Do you see something different, Chaz?
You said that Max's first championship will be the season after next?
Either this season or next season.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can. Are we talking about him versus Leclerc yet?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I have Verstappen before Leclerc. Yeah. Mostly because of their contract obligations. Leclerc is still at Ferrari until 2024, and Verstappen is at Red Bull until 2023. I think he just signed the contract last year or last year. But yeah, I'd much rather be at Red Bull these days than Ferrari. So and then worst case scenario, I mean he he leaves a year sooner and he goes to. There aren't very many better teams, but next year things are going to get shaken up. We'll see who the real good teams are, and if there is a better team, he'll have the pick of the litter as far as where he wants to go. A season ahead of Leclerc, so that's an extra season to either win it or to acclimate to another team that could give him the possibility of winning it. I mean, that's the kind of tricky thing about Formula One. Like it's not just the driver, it's also the car, it's also the team, it's also the management, as we've been talking about a lot lately. There's so many factors that go into it, and so I mean, you have drivers that could have had completely different seasons had they just been in a different car or on a different team, right? So it is really hard to say like which one of them is going to win one first, because honestly, either one of them in the right car could win this year.
Yeah.
And that's not even, I don't even think anybody would disagree with me on that. Like any of them, either one of them could win this year. So it really is just a matter of like, okay, how do we predict to some extent where they'll end up and what sort of decisions they'll make? And I think both of those drivers really want to win championships. I don't think that they're just necessarily in it for the money. I feel like a Ricardo, for example. I mean, not to crap on him. I love him like as a driver and a human. But I feel like he would be content to just drive, right? And if he doesn't win one, I mean, no sweat off his. I mean, nothing fundamentally changes. But I feel like Verstappen and Leclerc really want to win one. They drive like it. They approach the sport like they really want to. And so, yeah, it really will depend less on. And I say that to give context to the kinds of decisions that we can anticipate they might make. Yeah, I think they'll make decisions that won't just be kind of money grabs, but they'll actually try to get themselves in the record books. So I think Verstappen will get the opportunity sooner, being with Red Bull and getting out of contract before Leclerc does.
Well, I made this point earlier that Charles was disappointed last season that the way Ferrari finished altogether. Um, Now, I disagree with you just a little bit. I don't think Ferrari will be a train wreck this season. I think the train wreck will be Haas, honestly, compared to all the other teams. But Ferrari, I think, is still in the rebuilding sessions, though. They're kind of waiting for 2022's new power unit to come out. But I think at the same time, they're trying to make tweaks to the engine. They have made tweaks to the engine so far. Um, and once again, it's testing, but with them finishing third in testing, that does help at least see where the new power unit made some strides over the off season. Now, with that said, too, I agree with you that Max has the better team, the better car. Um, I I really truly believe he'll win the championship first. But now, also, what if this scenario happened where Charles actually went to Red Bull and those two are on the same team? Then you'll see a battle going at it.
It'll be one of the greatest lineups. It'll be the best lineup we've had since 2016 with Hamilton and Nico Rosberg.
Oh yeah, I love that. Um, well, that was our poll for this week, but next week we have it actually starting today. It's We talked about this earlier, but I just want to get your guys' opinions on this, and we'll probably discuss this a little bit more into depth. That will Lewis Hamilton retire at the end of this year? So I will put that up. It's on Twitter right now at Form of Racing. So make sure you check that out. And lastly, what is our opinions on the best looking vehicles, best looking cars, best looking liveries over this past couple weeks? Chaz, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I want to know your picks, man. What do you got?
Go to me first. Thank you. Um, there's some good ones. I love Aston Martin's new looking car. I think it's
And
fantastic.
give them in order. Give them in order. The give me your top three.
Top three. Okay, that's good. I like that. At number three, I like Aston Martin. I've made Aston Martin and AlphaTauri probably tied for three. Then um, number two is actually Alfa Romeo.
Mm-hmm.
Then number one, I know Mike. It's not here to. He said this last week, but he doesn't like it. But it's a new brand, new car company. I really love, especially on the night circuit where they had this, where Alonso was driving it. I love Alpine. I think it's a really
Mm.
cool car. You want to
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. Um,
know my
so
favorite?
your what? Your least favorite? Yeah, give me your least.
Like many others, I am not a. And that depends on the vehicle, but I'm not fond of that mission window on the Ferrari. That green one, I don't like that. I think that really pushes it down. Um, I know Mike is probably going to kill me, but he's not here this week. I'm not a fan of the Williams, that blue zebra stripe. I don't know, but overall, I'm not a fan. And you're going to kill me, Chaz, but I'm not a fan of the Mercedes. I don't
Mm.
like that AMG splattered all the back. I mean, I understand AMG is their biggest sponsor. It is Mercedes. They're trying to promote that line as much as possible. I just feel they probably could have done a little differently. I don't know. I'm not. I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah. No, I get that. I actually am not a fan of the this black and red. I don't know why they incorporated the red and the gray as much as they did into the Mercedes.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not a fan of that. That doesn't look great to me. Um, but yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Let's kind of go through the ones I do like.
Okay.
Um, I'll give you my three in reverse order too. Um, I have AlphaTauri at three. Um, number two, such a good looking car, the Aston Martin. Um, I'm such a fan of that green. I think it's iconic. Obviously, Aston Martin, beautiful. It's actually a different green than just kind of like that deep, dark kind of British racing green. It's almost kind of more suggestive of a green. It has a little bit more blue in it, which I really like. It's maybe a little aqua, but huge fan of that. And then I love like classic liveries. And so my absolute favorite when I saw it, I was like, yes, please, is the Alfa Romeo. It reminds me a bit of the Sauber liveries from a few years back, and I was a huge fan of those. So I definitely like that red and white, simple, consistent throughout the entire car. Unlike the Mercedes, which just has different colors coming out of random places. Um, yeah, those are my top picks.
What about your bottom?
Um, yeah, I would say my bottom would definitely be. I would say it'd probably be Mercedes. Um, I really don't like that wing. It bothers me. I don't think it looks great at all. And if we're giving like overall points or taking away overall points, then um, I mean Red Bull kind of phoned it in this season,
Yeah.
as did McLaren. I think they kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, McLaren is now trying, from what I understand, the team principal. They're trying to get this iconic look like they had for 15 years, from the early 80s to the mid 1990s, was that
Hmm.
classic red and white marble look.
Right.
They also had that almost like classic silver look with the like the early 2010s, which I
Hmm.
absolutely late 2000s, early 2010s. So they're trying for that iconic look now with it orange. But
Yeah, yeah. And then trying to like just hone in on it and make it similar every season the way that Ferrari does. And
mhm.
um, so yeah, I get it. It's meh. Even the first season, it wasn't like revolutionary design. It doesn't look super great. That orange and blue. I mean, if it was just orange or um, maybe like orange and white, something that would like pop out more, or I don't know, orange on orange with like just like different shades of like maybe a burnt orange on top of that or something
Yeah,
like that. Just something that would be more visually interesting than just like resolving the orange so easily with just a complementary blue. I don't know. It's just kind of boring for me.
it is honestly. And I understand where they're coming from. But I'm like you. It's like doesn't even though that um, Aston Martin has that type of same feel as far as the color scheme, but to your point, is they made that green and that pink from Racing Point just make it great together. The pink it's just a highlight pinstripe, not that big this year, and that green is actually the old Aston Martin Racing green. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that color, but they made it work great. But
yeah,
like if they were going to do something like that, they'd do like a burnt orange on the McLaren or
yeah. I
the
mean, it looks like it could be any generic Tropicana like container. Like I mean, it could be anything. Um, any sort of like generic candy or like it's just the colors aren't special or unique or interesting, and seeing it on a car just doesn't really do anything. I think from an being iconic standpoint, yeah, I think it'll be noticeable and recognizable because nobody else would want to do it.
sure. But also they could probably took a page out of Mercedes and Aston Martin, where they just could have done the blue in a pinstripe instead of making it like big on the bottom, but
Sure,
maybe change it up a little bit or something.
I like that.
Um, Before we go, let's talk about Haas there and their car. I know we talked about it before, but as far as just reveals and stuff like that, yes, it is the Russian color flags on there. Let's call a spade a spade. It's just the Russian color flags on it, and they made note about it. But overall, it doesn't look bad. I mean, granted, I wish. I mean, the one they had a few years ago with, granted, energy drink that is sponsored, Rich Energy, like but they came out with a great looking car with the black and gold, and now it
Yeah, does anyone think that it looks bad?
it doesn't look great, but it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't look bad though. But it's just like it for me. It does when I look at it now. It just I don't know. I just want to sing Mother Russia. It's just it,
Yeah, I think it looks. It obviously looks like the flag, um, but yeah, I actually think it's rather clean looking.
it is.
Not yeah. I wouldn't say it looks bad, especially especially the way that the halo looks in white. Surprisingly, that particular bit really works for me. The silhouette of the halo in white. A lot of the or not a lot of, but some of the other teams have changed the color of the halo. Um, like like the Alfa Romeo actually has a different color halo.
Mhm.
But yeah, I actually think it looks super clean, and I don't have a problem with it.
Um, Lastly, it was one of my losers. It's Your opinion on Ferrari, what they did with the regular Ferrari red and that burgundy in the back. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think anytime they do something a little bit different, I appreciate it. Take like a little bit of a different approach. I definitely appreciate it. So I'm never going to complain about them trying something new or doing something that isn't just basic red all over with their sponsors on top.
Yeah.
Now, I don't love. I'm like you. I don't love the crazy bright Mission Winnow. I think Mission Winnow. Do you know the story behind Mission Winnow?
It is a Philip Morris company.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is also they own Marlboro cigarettes, and this is just
Correct.
a way for them to get their advertising Marlboro cigarettes on there without actually saying one.
Correct. Right. So it's just an indirect way to stay in the sport. So, yeah, I think they probably give them a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just like, hey, we want this on there in contrasting colors this year, so that you literally cannot miss it. Like we want it to be offensively green. And Ferrari was like, well, you're paying us an obscene amount of money, so we'll make it offensive.
Well, I heard someone say this too, is to the point of Ferrari as well as Mercedes AMG stickers in the back. It might be hideous looking, but they're serving their purpose as far as we're talking about it.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's just true. That's true. And you see it, you can't help but avoid it. So it's kind of a classic all press is good press kind of thing.
yeah, and we might be seeing quite a bit more of that Mercedes this season. So you never know. They might change it up like Ferrari did, one race, and that's one thing I wish they had. Is like, yeah, they could have gone with the traditional Ferrari red. I just wish they went with the whole thing burgundy though on the back wing. I wish the whole thing like they had in one race. I forgot which race it was, but they went the whole entire car burgundy, which is absolutely beautiful, especially at night. But
Yeah, I mean it's fun, but they'd never do that.
no. Well, they did it for one race last season, but hey, on behalf of Chaz Day, I'm Brock Young, thanking you so much for being here this week. In the meantime, check out our other videos right here on YouTube. Also, check out our Facebook page. It's brand new. Check it out. As well as on Twitter, we have our new poll right now. Will Lewis Hamilton retire at the end of the year? Please go ahead and vote for us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you if you have a topic for us. theformofracing@gmail.com. In the meantime, we'll see you right here next time on The Form of Racing.